SpaceX Creeper. Orbit height 408 kilometers from the Earth. 2100 hours. Man had seen wars, fought wars, bled wars. All that remains is judgment. Anonymous.
You're weird. You know that, right?
Jeanette Rodriguez asked, concerned as she saw me keenly reading through my journal of anonymous war and life quotes in the quiet of the Creeper's cafeteria. Out of the 112 crew members aboard the SpaceX Creeper, Jeanette was the only one who saw me as someone who needed medical attention. She thought I had my head in the clouds. Well, we were way above clouds anyway. Doesn't that mean we're all crazy in some manner? How do you mean? I asked, faking surprise.
You keep reading all this war and judgment crap like the wrath of God is upon us or something.
Well, wrath is upon us. We've seen time and time again that man's definition of right and wrong is flawed, which means the choices we make are likely to cause more harm than good.
Whoa, easy there, Tiger,
Jeanette said, rolling her eyes.
I just came to get a soda, so keep your loony ideas to yourself. You know, if I hadn't known you since MIT, I'd say you were in a cult of some sorts, the way you came up with these theories.
So, what do you think I am? I asked, quite curious to know.
Loco, amigo. You are crazy,
she replied with a slight trace of an accent as she walked over to the vending machine to get her soda. I laughed a bit. It was funny that even though we weren't the best of friends, we still had a way of coexisting just fine. We'd been out here for the past 9 months, longer than the average 6-month expedition, which almost drove everyone nuts in some way. We had no contact with families, friends, or anyone except the authorities at NASA, who termed the expedition Ragnarok. Jane, I said in deep thought. Jane was what I called her when I needed to talk about something serious.
This damn thing keeps pissing me off, she said, ignoring me while hitting the vending machine by the side, already knowing what I wanted to ask.
Jane, I said more strongly.
What is it, Glade?
She turned to face me, exasperated. With one of the highly advanced inventions of its time, space crew members didn't necessarily need to float in space like before. The guys back at NASA were finally able to invent a gravitational machine called the Pull, which caused the pseudo-force acting on the objects inside the Space Creeper to mimic, with precision, the gravitational pull found on Earth. Have you wondered why we're really here?
Oh no, not this conspiracy theory about the government sending us as guinea pigs again, Glade.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time they use people as guinea pigs, would it? I said with an arched right eyebrow.
Look at the bright side. We've been here for 9 months. If something would have gone wrong, it would have by now, and we'd be long dead.
I know, but...
No buts, Glade,
she interjected.
For God's sake, we're going home next week. Your wife's pregnancy should be due by now. You probably won't be in time to see her give birth or hear your child's first cry, but you get to go home anyway. Think on these things and take it easy on yourself, Poppy. You're gonna be a dad, and trust me, you don't want to miss out on your kid's life.
I could sense she said the last part from experience rather than advice. Jane never really talked about her past, even while at the Institute of Technology. Yet I could see, from hearing her talk about it every now and again, that there were dark truths hidden there that she wanted to keep buried. I hear you, Jane, I said, thoughtful and relenting with my beliefs a bit. I'll take things slow.
Okay, this got awkward,
she said teasingly. What did?
You did. Getting all emotional all of a sudden. God, you are so dramatic.
We've been on the Creeper for 9 months, Jane. Being dramatic is a happy drug to the less desirable paranoia, I said, grinning, obviously joking.
You better keep that kind of advice away from your kid, Glade, she said, through slightly clenched teeth, followed by a shit-could-go-sideways shrug. The words happy and drug shouldn't even be in the same sentence. Oh, come on, Jane. You know darn well that I couldn't do that. Do I, though? She said with narrowed eyes, with only a hint of a smile to show she was only messing with me. I'll take that as a joke. Anyway, what about you? Any hot dates planned for any lucky earthling back home?
We've been here a long time now, with zero contact with the world beside NASA. Tell me, Glade, what do you think?
She asked with arms folded. I just gulped, unsure of what to say, even though the answer was obvious. I figured, she said, smiling, as she turned to walk away. Where are you going, anyway?
Oh, we're scheduled for a verbal briefing in an hour. I need to get some sleep,
she said without breaking her stride. A few minutes after she left and I was back reading my journal, pausing only to reflect on a new quote, passage, notes that really resonated with my soul. Thankfully, the stars made effort on shading poetic light on my thoughts. I was there for about 15 minutes, then my eyes started to get heavy from exhaustion. It had been almost 48 hours since I'd had a proper night's sleep. Being on kitchen duty was draining with the odd-hour demands of odd-hour working crew members. Time was seen differently aboard the SpaceX Creeper, and so sleep was based on shifts or the absence of emergencies. 2,255 hours. It was getting chilly within the cafeteria. I decided to call it a night and turn in to catch some shut-eye before the 0-hour daily briefing, when something caught my eye. Fast, bluish in colour and with lightning speed. I turned quickly, my eyes darting warily around the cafeteria and also outside the 4 big, bulletproof airtight glass panes that covered most of the creeper wall to my left, just beside the kitchenette. Watching curiously, expecting to see what it was, or maybe my mind just picked up on something. It wasn't uncommon for comets to pass with such effects like I just witnessed. After waiting a few more seconds, I assumed it must be from the exhaustion I felt, or probably it was just a comet, and so I turned to continue my walk out of the cafeteria. Suddenly, a bright, bluish light burned brightly into the room from behind me. It had a glow so bright that even with my back to whatever it was, I had to cover my eyes from the reflection which bounced off the wall. And then the intensity was reduced to a normal glare, like the glow from a car's headlight. Not bright enough to cause me to shield my eyes, but bright enough to leave me starstruck when I turned to see what it was. What they were, as I would find out. Tiny flying saucers dotted the night sky outside the bulletproof window panes, with a small, pod-like hatch that carried... What the hell? I muttered to myself, too speechless to be conscious of anything else. What looked like praying mantis inhabited these foot-long, miniature-looking spaceships. And just as they come in the twinkle of an eye, they vanished from my sight. But it was almost as if they scattered in multiple directions. Breaking into a cold sweat, I dashed out of the room, taking long strides to the control room, which was also the briefing room. If this really was an ambush like I thought, then we needed to be prepared for anything, or risk being blasted into smithereens. A clandestine space expedition like the Creeper wasn't going to raise any governmental eyebrows, because as far as I was concerned, we were guinea pigs for a much bigger scheme at play. It took me 10 minutes to get to the control room. A large space station like the Creeper wasn't always easy to navigate without the occasional hassle of getting through tight corners. I needed to find Glenn Brody, sole captain of the Creeper.
I got there to find a couple of the guys with nothing more to do at that hour other than play Call of Duty on a large display screen, which also served as a statistics or video call screen during meetings. Matt Calloway, Denise Henshaw, and Brad Wayne. Matt and Brad were having a fun time with 2 wireless consoles on a particular stealth mission.
Jeez, you look like you've seen a ghost,
Denise said, being the first to notice me enter the room, pale-faced. Since laundry wasn't possible aboard the Creeper, we usually wore cotton shirts and light khaki pants, and we also brought a lot of underwear. In fact, we had funding for that. The same funding attached to spacesuits. "Who's that?" Matt asked, not bothering to see who entered.
Glade,
she said, with so much disinterest it was like she was looking at paint dry. We never got along at all. "Is Captain Glenn here?" I asked, ignoring her statement.
Do I or do they look like Glenn?
She said, pointing to Matt and Brad. Denise never called him Captain unless it was during a full briefing or for the sake of formality. Rumour around the Creeper was that they were seeing each other. Why else would she be on a first-name basis with him anyway?
Yes or no would do. Well, no, she retorted.
His quarters then? What the fuck, man? Do we look like babysitters? We don't know. Matt turned to face me with a haughty stare. Jeez, chill guys. I'm not the enemy, I said genuinely, the concern showing on my face. The enemy? Brad asked, speaking for the first time since I entered. That's a pretty strong word, bro. Is there something you're not telling us? Among the 3, Brad was the most perceptive. I paused, wondering whether to tell them or not. Then I decided to. I saw something.
Oh, here we go again,
Denise said, rolling her eyes.
What did you see? A Martian?
She added with a laugh, and Matt joined in. That would be your mother, I said with a blank expression on my face.
What the fuck did you just say to me?
Denise said, hopping off the long centre table she was sitting on and started walking towards me. She was mostly feisty, an ex-army brat. Whoa, hey, calm down, Brad said, dropping the console and stepping in before things got out of hand. He turned to look at me with a look that expressed disapproval. I saw miniature flying saucers, about 30 of them, each a foot long, and... I paused, weighing my words. And they carried praying mantis in small pod-like hatches attached to the saucers. There was a pause for a fraction of 2 heartbeats. Then tear-streaked laughter erupted between Matt and Denise. Oh my god! You're a freaking comedian, you know that, right? Matt said, laughing hysterically.
Did you see Kung Fu Panda or Master Shifu?
Denise chipped in, savouring every bit of teasing me. I know what I saw, I said firmly.
Hey, I believe you,
Denise said. You do?
Of course. You know, I thought I saw a unicorn last week in the shower with a bikini on, singing. What's that song again?
She said, snapping her fingers at Matt to help her recall. Oh yeah.
Sexual healing,
he said, laughing hysterically, with tears this time.
That's it. Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye.
She said, looking at me with a mocking stare.
You know what I did with that crazy thought? I kept that shit to myself.
Give him a listening ear. There just might be truth in what he's saying, Brad said, keenly observing me. I could tell that he too had his doubts, especially since I was known for having an overactive imagination. Overactive, they called it. If only they understood there was more to see than meets the eye. This isn't the first time we've heard of extraterrestrial sightings, Brad continued saying, though I must admit, it all sounds weird, made up even. But if you're right, then we have a problem on our hands. And if you're not, he paused, weighing his words, then you're one sick bastard, Glade. I know what I saw, I said point blankly. Very well then, I'll escort you to the captain's quarters. He should be here any minute now. But this matter might possibly be a world-level threat. Still doesn't change my mind. He's lying, Brad, Denise said.
Well, we'll find out, Brad replied as we walked out of the control room to confront the captain. There's something out there, I kept muttering to myself repeatedly after trying desperately to explain to my teammates aboard the SpaceX Creeper. Was I losing my mind? Or was this the beginning of something new? Or the end? 2330 hours. Officer's hallway. As we got closer, we heard a scuffle coming from within the captain's room. Then it got louder and turned into thrashing. We burst into the room. Thankfully, Brad had his handgun drawn. One of the few handguns aboard the Creeper. Can you believe that? They send us on this shit show and they don't even give us guns. But all the handguns aboard the Creeper couldn't have prepared us for what we saw next. Right before our very eyes, one of the mantis-looking creatures I saw earlier was forcing its way into Glenn's mouth. Brad started firing at the other one instinctively as I rushed to grab the one rapidly making its way into Glenn's mouth, but these things were disturbingly fast, with the other one latching onto Brad's face with so much force it popped one of his eyes out, causing him to scream and shoot blindly into the room. A bullet bouncing off the wall to my right and wheezed past my head, missing my face by inches, causing me to dive for the fall. Then, the strangest thing happened. The creature opened and entered Brad's mouth forcefully, causing him to fall to the ground with a thud. He jerked and wiggled, coughing out many streams of blood. I turned to face the chief and the same thing was happening with him. The other one had gotten in. My heart juggled a treadmill of emotions. Adrenaline kicked in. Instinctively, I reached for the handgun Brad was holding and aimed it around the room. What the hell is going on? I said to myself. Suddenly, it dawned on me that the hassle hadn't stirred any reaction from the neighbouring rooms, which was weird. Jane! I rushed out and into her room 3 doors to the left of Glenn Brody's. Without wasting time knocking, I charged into the room, ready to shoot anything that moved with wings, only to meet her seated calmly on the chair beside her reading table, unbothered and poised. Jane, are you all right? I asked, too concerned with her well-being to think of anything else. I am fine, she said in a voice that dragged, almost automated with only a touch of humanity in it. I paused for a bit, unsure of what was going on. Why do you sound like that? I asked tentatively, my hand holding the handgun tightly. Didn't you hear the gunshots coming from Cap's room? No response, just a cold stare. I asked you a question. Did you not hear the racket going on in the Cap's room? She blinked multiple times. Fast. Too fast to be considered normal for a human being. Without warning, she shot out her tongue, which elongated from her mouth to my arm holding the gun and dragged me towards her. She was breathtakingly strong to be doing that with her tongue without having to move any other muscle. Knowing I had little time to act before the worst could happen, I dropped the gun to the floor, which gave me enough to make a run out of the room as she released my hand to go for the gun. Outside, I shut the door as fast as I could, bolting it with the emergency latch that hung there, just as she started to bang on the steel door with so much strength it caused heavy dents on it. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't Jane. I doubled back to the Cap's room only to find them alive and well, except for the bloodstains on their chins from coughing out so much blood. Aside that, there was no trace of the mantis-looking creatures or anything threatening at all. But I'd seen what Jane could do, and I wasn't willing to take any chances. But then I knew I couldn't outrun them if they had the same abilities as Jane. And so I acted like I didn't know anything was wrong. Cap, I think we're under attack, I said with as much shock as I could muster, even though it wasn't that hard since I didn't even know what was happening.
The Cap's dead, Mr. Glade Hannibal.
The reply was in monotone, almost as if whatever now held Glenn's body captive was trying to adjust to its new home. What are you? I said, dropping the act. They weren't stupid. They could sense I knew something was off.
Call us the Unseen,
Glenn's captor said with authority in his voice. Whatever took over Glenn was probably their leader. What do you want? What have you done with Glenn? What did we even do to deserve this? The questions were reeling in my mind.
We are... what do you Earthlings call it? He paused, thoughtful for a second. Judges, or as the ancients of your world referred to us, Ragnarok.
What do you mean? Judges? What do we need judging from?
Choices, Mr. Hannibal. Choices.
What do you mean, choices? The creature seemed to be one of those genocidal intellectuals from what I could see.
You see, the human nature is flawed. You of all people should know that.
It was a statement, not a question. Glenn knew about my journal and my talks about how flawed humans were in making decisions. Tapping into that stream of thoughts wasn't an issue for the creature. I just stared, my mind racing with escape plans, or at least a means to send out a distress signal. Yet if we were the guinea pigs, those bastards wouldn't care much. I wondered if Denise and Matt were still alive, which caused a question to come to mind. How did you get in?
Oh, that was the easy part. Thrusters. The creeper's in drift mode, is it not?
I nodded, my mind darting around looking for an escape plan.
The plates, what you call saucers, are designed to teleport when in proximity to an opening like that of your creeper's thrusters.
So why are you here? I needed to stall, because it was clear these things had a thicker plot in mind.
That's what I was getting to, and your answer will determine if you join our course, as you are, or be forced to, like we did with your friends.
There was a bloodlust stare in his eyes that almost made me shiver.
You see, we have gone by many names by your kind. Aliens, gods, guardians, even angels. What we are doesn't matter. It's what we do that counts. In 3 days, we should have obliterated all signs of life on the Earth and all the chaos it's caused. Your kind has proven time and time again that they cannot be trusted with anything, not even their own lives. The cosmos must move with order. Humans have abused that order, and Ragnarok has befallen man this day. Yet with every end marks a new beginning.
Why right now?
The balance of things must be restored. The time is now. Which brings me to the choice you have to make. Join us and we will spare you, eventually letting you be the father of a new world. A better world.
And if I don't?
We take over your mortal body just like we did with your friends, killing you in the process, of course,
he said with a straight face. I thought about my wife. I thought about my unborn kid. I thought about the struggle it had been for me to be here all this while. And just when I was so close to going home, this happened. I had to get out. I didn't know how, but I had to get out. But I had to play along. For some reason, the creeper had its self-destruct mechanism in the eventuality of being compromised. Almost as if the guys at the NASA and the Pentagon never wanted us to come home. I wish I could tell Jane, but the Mantis thing had taken over her. So that left me with one option. Blow the shit show to smithereens. The problem was, the self-destruct mechanism was in the control room. The control room was the sole most secured part of the creeper. If Denise and Matt were still there, then they were alive. But I could be wrong. Dead wrong. 00 hours. Midnight.
So, what do you say, Mr. Hannibal? the creature inhabiting Glenn's body said with an outstretched arm for a handshake. "Join us and make cosmic history. We'd be doing the Earth so much good," he added with a smile, like he was posing for a photo shoot. I had 5 seconds to think, but I only needed 3, and so I made a run out of the door for it as something helpful crossed my mind. A loud shriek could be heard from behind me, almost guttural, like a growling, mythical beast. But I knew turning would mean death for sure, and so I pressed on running, the rush of adrenaline being my only companion. These beings were incredibly fast. They gave the average man advantage in speed and strength. If I was going to defeat them, I had to reach the control room, and the only weapon within that stretch was a sledgehammer we kept for excavation purposes, if need be. The footsteps were getting closer. They were gaining on me, and for some reason the hallway was empty, and then a few meters up I saw why. A large portion of the crew was infected, inhabited by those butterfly-looking beings, and they covered the only part leading to the control room. I was still running, and the footsteps behind me grew closer the more, yet I couldn't stop. At that same instant, the control room opened, and Denise stood there with a grenade in her hand. Where the hell did she even get one? I was truly stunned, but then I ducked immediately as she pulled the pin and threw it into the midst of the former crew members. Boom! Glass and fragments of bones as well as body parts and pieces of metal splattered in every direction. The emergency light blared on and the sprinkler system was activated. It took me a minute or two to get my bearing, but through the smoke and rubble I could see Brad lying on the floor with a piece of metal rooted into his chest. He was long dead at this point, yet for closure I pulled out the metal and rammed it into his skull. Something felt off. Glenn. Where the fuck was Glenn? "Denise!" I yelled, knowing what needed to be done as I saw the remaining crew members emerge from the hallway which led to the officers' quarters. Oh God, no. That explained why nobody had come out to stop me earlier. The sneaky bastards want to exhaust whatever chance we had at stopping them. "Denise! Self-destruct! Now! Push the button now!" I yelled, a tear rolling down my eyes as I thought of Diana, my wife, my unborn child, and how I wouldn't be there for them. I turned and I saw Matt standing by the control room door, fear-stricken to the bone. But he knew what needed to be done. "Do it! God damn it!" He nodded, gave me a salute, and shut the door behind him. At the same time, the creatures grabbed me with elongated tongues and fangs that started to shred me to pieces bit by bit, as my screams were drowned by an ear-splitting explosion, ripping creatures and man into oblivion. Hey, Creepypasta fans. It's Thomas. Thanks for listening. To connect with and support us, make sure to check out our Discord and Patreon links in the description. And remember, stay cosmic.